Hi guys, let's talk a little bit more about lake access. This is probably, I would say this is the #1 issue that I've seen people get screwed over on. I'll probably talk about it again. I'll probably miss some of the examples, but this one particular guy, he bought a house on a lake and he was told he had lake access. Well, the realtor told him he had lake access, so the seller told the realtor, and they had it on the MLS sheet, they had it in the MLS file, they had it on the buy-sell agreement. Okay, well, none of that matters, right? Even if it has to be in the closing papers, so you have to prove that you have legal access through the neighbor's property. Okay, so the guy across the road, he had the access, he had the road that the realtor showed, and everybody said that's the road you use to go down to the lake. So what you need to do is check with that property owner. I don't care if they live in that area or not. I don't care how long it takes to get a hold of that property owner. You need to talk to them and make sure that they're okay with you crossing that property. This particular buyer closed on the property. He spent 2 years fighting for that access. I don't even know if he ever did get it. But what happens is after it closes, sellers got the money, they're long gone. The realtor's like, hey, I didn't know, buyer beware. Yeah, I represented the buyer too, but hey, I didn't know. So the buyer is left to fight with the landowner down below. Okay? So you're going to assume a fight that you could have got out of years of stress and time and money and attorney's fees if you would have actually talked to that person, talked to the neighbors, because this fight had been going on for years. It's just that this buyer was unsuspecting. So make sure you talk to the owner. So in my world, several states I've been licensed in, it's probably different other places. I'm only saying what I know. But in my world, you cannot get a title and then say, okay, this title says I have lake access. So I own a house and my lake access is across the street. It's not on the title. It doesn't encumber the property. It encumbers the neighbor's property. So you have to get the title report for the neighbor's property in order to see that. And you probably, it's unethical to do that, because then you'd see they're dead on the property, and that's another topic for another video. But you need to tell the title company, look, I need proof that there's access. I need to see the legal, deeded, surveyed access that's been recorded in the courthouse. Need that proof. And then you also need to talk to the landowner. So definitely do that. Another one I've talked about in recent videos is this gal called me about a month ago, and she said that she was sold a property with lake access and on a very elite lake, so very high priced property, and so she should have been able to sell it for just really good money. Well, when she went to sell it, it turned out she didn't actually have lake access. So the realtor said there was lake access. It was on the MLS sheet, on the advertisements, in the newspaper, on the buy-sell agreement that everybody signed, but it actually didn't exist. The lake access had been terminated 10 years before. Okay, so the consumer's ready to sell. They're now the sellers, and they find this out. First thing they do is go and chew out the realtor, right? And the realtor's like, I didn't know. So they had a buyer's agent. So then they get a hold of the listing agent, and the listings agent's like, well, I didn't know. And then the broker, the managing broker of a Coldwell Banker, said, well, we knew, but it was a clerical error, so, it's no big deal. And they just passed it off. So hundreds of thousands of dollars difference in what they would be able to sell it for with or without lake access, but there's nothing we can do. So the buyer, who's now the seller, is all mad, and they go down to the MLS, the local association, and they say, look what happened to me. And here's a letter. He even admitted that he did it and admitted that he knew. And the local association of realtors says, well, there's nothing I can do, so, Okay, so then you go to the state association of realtors. Well, there's nothing I can do. Basically because of who the realtor is. Some big shop manager of a whole bunch of Coldwell Bankers. So the next step is the real estate board, the state level. Well, there's only so far they can go, and they're not going to go up against a managing broker of a Coldwell Banker because they got a lot more money and they're just going to fight them and fight them and fight them. And those boards don't have that kind of money. And if the people had, well, it's just a whole lot of stress to do that. So where this woman's at with it now is she just gives up. Nothing I can do about it. If she sues, she's going to be in court for years, right? Well, you might do that because it's going to be worth a lot more money if you actually win. And you have to prove the price, the difference between what you would have got, you know, and which should be hundreds of thousands of dollars. But she wanted to sell, and court could take 6 months to years, so she just kind of gave up and let it go and just took it on the chin. Now this happens all the time with consumers because nobody's listening. This higher standard realtor, it doesn't exist. There is no consumer protection in real estate. It does not exist. Okay, this other property, I listed it, and it was a 20-acre parcel, just gorgeous views. Irrelevant, but there was a lake down below, and you know, of course, views of the lakes and all the lakes around in the mountains, and just wonderful property. And I listed it, and they said they had lake access. Oh, cool. You know, it'd be nice, this nice little private lake, and they could float around on it. And I took the listing, and at that time I'd had some hard knocks in education and real estate, so I wanted to prove it before I got sued later. I didn't know at that time that I was like, you know, Superman, and I couldn't be sued because, you know, I was a realtor. So I actually looked it up, and I was poking around. I couldn't figure out how they had lake access, right? So I talked to the title company, I tried to get information, I talked to the people who owned the lake and the people who had water rights on the lake, and there was no lake access. Nobody had access on that lake. It just, you know, there was a turbine in one end, and they never give lake access to anybody. So I went to the seller and I said, what makes you think that you have lake access? And they said, well, we got paperwork on it, which is what they've been telling me all along, if they had paperwork on it. So, you know, I thought, well, they did. So they showed me their paperwork on it, and what their paperwork was a buy-sell agreement. So they had written into the buy-sell that there was lake access, and the buyer and the seller signed it, right? And the realtor signed it. Well, that real estate office had shut down, and the realtor was now a broker, managing broker of Coldwell Banker. Is there a common denominator here? No, it's not just Coldwell Banker. This is just something that really happens. So I said, well, you know, just because it's on the buy-sell doesn't mean that it's true. I mean, the buy-sell could promise you the moon. It could say there's a golden egg on the property, and if you don't make sure that it's there the day of closing, then it's not there. So you have to prove at the title company that there's actually deeded access, proven deeded legal access, that you have a right to go to that lake. So we ended up selling it without lake access, but it shocks me that in many of these cases, and we'll just give those 3 examples for now, but in many of those cases, people thought that they really had these rights, these accesses, these easements, stove, refrigerator, whatever it is, because the buyer told them, not the buyer, the buyer's agent told them, the seller's agent told them, or the seller themselves told them, or it was written on the buy-sell. So what? Just because it's written on the buy-sell does not mean it's actually going to happen. You have to actually make sure that it's happening. Make sure that you actually have these legal access to this lake. And, you know, you need to make sure that the title company and people prove it before you close. So that's just some of the stuff that can happen with lake access. Make sure that you have it before you sign on the dotted line. SavvyBroker.com.